Good morning. Today I'm going to be building a raised planter bed for square foot gardening. The planter bed is going to be 9 feet by 2 feet and it's going to be 8 inches deep of soil. It's going to be installed on a sloping garden, so when I install it I'm going to have to make the front legs 14 centimetres longer so that when the garden slopes away the planter box still sits nice and square on top. Building it out of 2x4s and some 6x4s for a little bit of extra depth on the box, and I'm going to be cutting the legs now to make the first cuts on the miter saw. Okay, now cut the back legs. The legs are going to be attached like this in an L shape, give them lots of strength because it's going to hold somewhere around about half a ton once the planter is full. Right, to make these legs, drill into the sides here, straight through and just screw through into the board behind. Using 80mm decking screws. Okay, first leg, just going to go make up the next one, and I'm going to cut the next set. I'm going to make them 14 centimetres longer to account for the slope of the garden. So I'll stop the video and I'll come back once the other three are made. Okay, so I have made the 4 legs. You see the difference in height there, that's to account for the slope in the garden. So, next I'm going to make the cross pieces. Cross pieces are going to come in here to set the 2 foot width for the planter. So let's get those cut. to get the right depth of what I'm using, on the top piece I'm using a 2x4, and the next layer down I'm using a 2x6, because there's going to be a base that goes across the bottom of it, and I want at least 8 inches of depth for everything to be planted in. Okay, I'm going to get the rest of these pieces cut and I'll be back. Okay, so we've cut the pieces now. Got my 2x4s, my 2x6s, and the way I'm going to build the planter is that's going to be the sides. It's going to come round both on the short sides and the long sides like this, and when it actually sits there it will have a base on it there, so we then have an 8-inch depth for planting in, which apparently is perfect for square foot planting. So now that I've got the short side there, I'm going to make the long sides, so I'm going to cut those, we'll come back and we'll put it all together. Okay, I've now cut the long pieces. I realised I hadn't bought the right lengths and I've had to make one of them out of 2 1.5s rather than a single 3 metre section. Now, what I've also been thinking as well is that with almost half a tonne of soil in there, I want to put some middle legs in there, so I've cut 2 pieces to go in the middle to help support it, to make sure it's not going to start sagging in the middle as well, and that will also help there when my 2 1.5 metres can join right where the leg is to give it extra support there. So I want to make the piece out of the big 2x6s first, so I've got that set up. I've got another table behind. I'm going to get the pieces laid out and then I'm going to screw through to make my initial box. Once that's done I can then add the legs on for strength. So let's get one 6x3s in place. 6x3s, 2x6s, 6x2s, however you call them. So I'm going to need some more noggins there just to level that one up. How's that looking? It's looking pretty close there now. Just need to get the first ones in, first screws, and then it suddenly becomes a lot more sturdy to work on. It's not too bad. Right, I'm just going to go and get my square just to make sure I'm cutting it square. Okay, I've got my big square now. Because this is such a big project, I'm currently building this in a gazebo in the garden, as I don't have a garage and haven't got anywhere else big enough to do it. So most of my tools are down in the house, which is why I'm having to run backwards and forwards a little bit here to get things. There we are, that is nice and square. So let's get the first hole filled and get this all screwed together. Would have been sensible to have all my screws and everything in place here. Right. First one, that should hold it. Let's get the rest of this done. I'm only putting the 2 screws in this from here now. Might seem like that's not very much, however, once I've got the legs will now come on the outside of this, and then there will be more screws that are going in from the outsides to support it and make sure it's nice and strong. So it just needs those just to pin it in place initially for whilst I'm putting it together. So I'm going to get the next piece in, put the back piece on, and then we'll come back and we'll get the legs fixed in place. Okay, we've got this now put together. We've got the 4-inch wide and then the 6-inch there at the bottom. So that's all now set up. This is going to be the actual finished size of the planter inside here. Where I've had to join the 2 1.5 sections is here, and I'm going to put a middle leg here at the front and the back to help support it. That will help to stop it from bowing anyway, so that's only a good thing really. So grab one of the legs. Now what I'm doing is, where I've got the L on the leg, I want to put it in the opposite direction to what the mitre is on here. So you see it overlaps long side here, so I'm doing the long side there, and then when I screw in I can screw straight through on this solid piece into the back, and on the shorter one here I can go straight into this one as well, so it will catch on all sides there, which is the reason I've done the L in that direction, so it catches there. So I'm going to screw these in place, then we can lift the benches out and it gives us a bit more working room for while we're doing it. So we'll get that done and then we'll come straight back. Okay, so what I'm going to show you is just how I'm going to attach this first one. So I've got a clamp here, I'll put the leg in place, get him so that it's nice and flush with the top, exactly as I want him, and then I should just be able to clamp him in place like that, and then I can get the screws in nice and easily. So let's get So I've got a couple in there, I'll put a few more in, and then the same on this side. I'll clamp the other legs in place, and then we've got something that will actually stand up. Right, got it lifted down into place. It's pretty heavy now with the amount, so I wanted to lift it down before we put the extra legs on and any of the base in, just to add extra weight, just so to make it manageable. As you can see, this garden slopes down here, which is the reason I had the longer legs here on the front. Check the level. And actually it's down just a couple of mil in that corner, but not to the point it's going to cause any problems. Again, looking at the sides here, down maybe a centimetre there. Again, I'm not so worried. Once it's got half a tonne of dirt in it, it's going to level itself, it's going to find its own sort of position there, and it will sink in. So now I'm going to cut the middle legs, get those driven in there. Where these 2 bits need to join, I'll put a screw either side so that it fixes on that leg there. That will stop that one from bowing. It's this one that's going to take the weight anyway. And the same, I'll put one leg here just to make sure the front can't bow. So I'll get those cut and screwed in, and then we'll come back and we'll have a look at doing the inside. So this is all in place now. I've got the middle legs in place here. That's not going anywhere now, it's all nice and solid. So the next bit now is I'm going to cut some pieces to go across and screw through from the outside, so they're actually going to come inside of here, which is because when the screws go in, they're never going to rip through. Whereas if I screw it up from underneath, they could pull out downwards, so that would be a much weaker joint than if I have the actual metal going through, holding the base in place. You might be looking at this thinking it's very high. Now, the reason I've done this, just because my partner has got problems with her neck, and this means that she can garden without having to bend down. This is quite a nice height. You can get to here and to that side, and in actual fact it's not too bad if you have a kneeler you can kneel down here and you can work on this side as well, so you haven't even got to bend over at all. So I think this is going to be the perfect height for what we actually need. I'll get some of these pieces cut and then we'll come back to you. I've been busily cutting lots of wood here to come across inside here, and what I've done now, I've got these two offcuts here which aren't quite long enough for what I need, and I've just used the clamps to clamp them in place on both sides here. So now when I'm ready to put these in, if I knock these down into here in the square, then I've got a nice flat base, and I know that they're always going to be flush with the base. So knock these across like that, I can get them lined up, and then from the outside here I can drill in and go put screws straight through to hold these nice and securely on the base. So I'm going to run these all the way along. We'll come back and show you once I've got them screwed into place. And that's it, that's the last screws to the base. Got all of the wood in here now to line the base. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a large tarpaulin, I'm going to lay it down on the inside and use a staple gun to staple it on the inside here. Now if you think, hang on a minute, the staples are just going to rust out, but actually we're going to poke holes down for drainage in between each of the slats anyway, so it doesn't matter even if there's some small holes and the staples rust out. Once the soil's in there, it's going to hold this all in place nicely. So I'm going to go and get the tarpaulin, lay it out in there, grab the staple gun, and then we'll come back. I think I'm actually going to need 3, but I thought I'd get away with 2. That's okay. I bought some spares. So I'm getting this all pinned into place here now, just using the big staple gun. Now I went round looking to see what we could use for this, and I was thinking I might need to use pond liner, but that was about £40, so a piece that would do this, whereas actually these tarpaulins are only £1 each, so even if I need to use 3 of them, I'm not really worried. Thinking probably this isn't going to look very pretty having this here, but I'm actually going to put some trim pieces across the top when this is finished, so this will be completely hidden underneath here, so I'm not worried about it coming up and over. Just helps to protect the wood a little. And there we are, that's all there. So now I just need to get a screwdriver and poke some holes in there just so it drains, so it doesn't fill up with water, and just trim these corners off just to make that nice and neat, and then I can put the top boards across this. So I'm just going to trim this up, and then I'm going to measure it up for the top trim pieces. Right, so as you can see, this is all now pinned down exactly all around there. We've punctured a load of holes in the bottom of this, scattered around there, just so that it can't fill up with water and there's drainage that comes out, and made sure that those just sit between the slats there. So that will all run there. So now we're going to make the trim pieces to come across the top. So I've measured from here. Now when I'm measuring to do the trim pieces, I'm measuring from right inside corner to this inside corner, so the shortest possible distance, because I'm going to cut these corners at a 45-degree angle, and I want the shortest side measurement there for what I'm going to do. So let me grab a piece of wood over here and I'll show you what I mean by that. Right, so I've got the piece of wood that I'm going to use here, and before I start to do any measurement, I'm just going to cut this at 45 degrees. So I've got my mitre saw here, so I'm just going to loosen this off. And on my scale, which is covered in lots of sawdust here, I've got the 45 degrees here. So turning that, there we are, so that's lined up on the 45 degrees. I'm just going to lock that in place. And let's get this piece of wood on here. I don't want to waste any wood, so I'm taking my laser line right up to here. Again, the laser is also covered in lots of dust because I've been doing lots and lots of cutting today, but you can see the laser is right there. So I want to lose the minimum amount of wood. So I'm just going to cut this piece here. So this is quite loud. So now that I've cut that off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure my inside distance that I measured down on the box from there to the end, and I'm going to put a marker on there. So for me, that's exactly 3 metres. I'm going to grab my tape measure and a pencil. I'm going to put a marker on there. Much easier if you can have someone else to hold the other end, but as long as you're careful not to move this as you're measuring, it's all okay. Excuse all the mess and drinks, but it's been very hot up here today, so needed drinks to keep going. So, at exactly there, I'm going to put a marker on the edge of the board there, so I know where I need to cut. So, I'm going to rotate this board around so that I've got it over at the mitre saw over there. Right, so I'll flip this plank around. Now what I've got is, if you look at this end, you can see I've got the short piece at this end, which I've cut. And then I'm also going to cut it here so that it comes in to the same area. And that measurement, the 300 that I measured on here, or 33 metres, is exactly the measurement on the inside edge here. So you can see the laser is just coming up to where I put my pencil mark. So now that I've got that there, that's nice and tight against there. Let me just cut this. There we are. I've got that piece there, and that is mitered. So let me just carry that down and you'll see exactly how that's going to sit. Okay. So that measurement there, this is why I measured and made sure it was on the inside edge on both. That will sit there, and then I'm now going to cut another piece exactly the same there and there to make these trim pieces all across the top, and then I'll screw these down straight down into it, and then we've got a nice border to go around the top so we haven't got this ugly plastic that's showing here. Right, I'll come back once I've got the other pieces cut. Right, I've got 4 pieces all now nicely cut, so that sits in there. So this just hides all this blue plastic because I'm going to fill it up with soil up to this level anyway, so all you'll see is the wood trim across the top. And also if you're leaning on it, if you want to work here, it's also much nicer than leaning on just the small planks there that we have there. So we'll drive some screws down into this and get this all positioned. So let's get a few of these down into here. So this is all now screwed in, all the trim pieces are in place, that's all fixed in place now, and it definitely looks much better having that there. It is just an extra, it's not necessary, but I think it just makes it look finished there, especially when you look around the edges there. It just looks quite nice having the trim piece on. So the next thing we're going to do, we need to get all the compost in here. And then what we'll actually do is we'll actually run strings across the middle, and then every 1 foot. So this is designed as a square foot gardening, so you have a 1 square foot area for each different thing. So you might put peas in one square area, you might put carrots in another, and then leeks, whatever. So you just pick each of those, but we'll actually put strings here to separate it. So we'll have 20 different little square feet here for varieties. So we'll show a picture of it once it's all completed. Thank you. Right, we've got this all put together. You can see we've put the markers on here to indicate each of the little square foots that we're actually doing. We put 1 bag of manure in and 6 bags of compost, but you can see it's a little bit shy there, so I'm going to have to go and get a bit more tomorrow just to top him up there. Might need to put a little bit more manure in as well. Because of the way we get light in this garden, we're going to have all the tall climbing plants up here, so we're going to make a little trellis out of some of these bamboo canes, and generally have the shorter plants coming down to this end, because this is where we get most of the light from. So this, I think, is pretty well done, and hopefully you'll see it once it's all planted. Thank you.